Welcome back to Sailing El Jaleo. This week we're going to go ahead and get right into it, just like last week. We're going to continue our 2025 ICW Debrief. Last week we went over the shallow spots, so if you're looking for the short version with just the current shallow spots in the ICW, there is a link in the description down below. This week we're going to go over the ICW and cover the shallow spots and all of the anchorages that I've ever stayed in, so it's going to be quite comprehensive. And originally I thought about doing this all in one shot, but then I realized it's just way too much information to try and digest in one sitting. So I am going to probably break it up into 3 different chunks. And this week I'm going to cover Chesapeake Bay and Virginia, and next week we'll continue our way south. So starting with next week's video, I will put timestamps in, so if you're using this video as a reference, you can jump around. Say I'll put like Charleston starts at 5 minutes 8 seconds, so you don't have to try and search around the video looking for specific points. But in this first video I don't think I'll put any timestamps in because I'm just going to be covering Chesapeake Bay and Virginia. There's just a very little chunk of Virginia that you go through at the start of the ICW. So I guess we might as well just go ahead and get right into it. And I think this is going to be I'm gonna try and keep these videos down to 20-25 minutes so they're a little a little easier to digest. So we do start our journey every year from Delaware City. That is our home base, and from there we go through the C&D Canal. And the first place, actually, we normally anchor here going north, and if we're going south we actually try and make a little bit further, but sometimes we always go with the current through the C&D Canal. So sometimes we don't leave until the afternoon, and in that case we do stay in Bohemia River. So I'm going to just cover all the anchorages sequentially, I guess, going south, and just we don't always stop at every anchorage every time, every year. Some of them we've done once or twice, and then just So anyway, so the first year in Bohemia River I did stay out in the middle, and that actually is not a great place to stay. It does expose you to wind blowing up the bay, so you can see wind can fly up the bay and hit you there, so it's not very well protected if the wind is blowing up the bay. Every other time since then I have stayed down in this area, and it does give you just enough cover from the shore where it'll break up any winds that are blowing up the bay, which a lot of times they do. So it's a lot more protected from the wind over here. I've been over here in some pretty nasty weather where you've got 1 or 2 foot waves out here, and it's nice and calm against the shoreline over here. So it does get shallow as you go in. I've never gone in much further than right in this area, but depending upon the draft of your boat, you can go in further. So that's a very nice place to stay. And from there, the next place is the Sassafras River. We've stayed here a couple of times as well. Normally when we're going south, I know the weather's going to be good for the first couple of days leaving Delaware City. That's kind of by design. So we'll stay along the southern shore here. It's a quick on and off from the ICW, so it's very convenient. But if you're, sometimes like when we're going north or south, depending upon which way the wind is blowing, you'll want protection from different vectors of wind. So I have stayed up along the northern shore here as well, and that's a good protection from the northern winds. And of course you can go further back up the Sassafras River. I've never gone that far in. I always stick out in the main river, but those are good anchorages as well. Great holding. Typically the anchor comes up pretty clean there, so I believe it's not too mucky of a bottom there. As we continue south, I have stayed here once. This is Still Pond Inlet. This is not a great place. There are crab traps everywhere. You don't really have much break from the wind. It's just basically an indentation in the side of the bay. And the only reason I stayed there was I was rapidly running out of light. I was trying to make it up to Sassafras River, and it doesn't look like they're very far apart, but probably would have taken us another hour and 15 minutes to get up there, and we just didn't have the daylight to do it, so we pulled over on the side there and anchored. It was a perfectly fine place to stay, but it is very exposed. So continuing further down the bay, one place that we don't stay very often is if you go in Magothi River. There are lots of places to anchor up in here, but where we always go is Deep Creek. Now this is a very shallow creek, and it is very tight, so there's not a lot of room here for a ton of boats, and it does say that it stays 7 or 8 feet deep back up into here, but I don't really believe it. I've never tested it, but over here where it says it's 8 to 9 feet deep, it's actually closer to 7, so I think it's a little shallower here than than what is advertised. But it is a very nice anchorage. It's right in the middle of a residential area. There's a restaurant up here where you can come in and dinghy in. I've never done it, but they've got some good reviews, so you can take your dinghy over there and get some food. But that's a very nice anchorage, very well sheltered, but there's only room for maybe 1 or 2 boats back in there. And it is exposed. It doesn't look like it. It looks like it'd be pretty well protected on the map, but you can see there's a run that goes up into the bay. So if the wind is blowing out of like the northeast, it can run down the bay and hit you in that anchorage, but you're pretty well protected from every other direction. So it's a very nice anchorage. Bottom is very, very muddy there. And the nice thing about this tight anchorage is the tidal swing is so low, it's only maybe a foot at the very most, that you really don't swing wide when the tide switches. You actually just kind of stick to the middle of the channel and move back and forth, so it's very nice. From there we go down through the Bay Bridge, and we have stayed up here once. That's when I met up with Kristen and Peter, and that's a very nice anchorage up there. It is a ways off the beaten path. I don't think I would go back up in there again for our purposes, but it's a very nice anchorage up there. We normally stay in Road River over here, and this is a nice anchorage. It does have a pretty good muddy bottom. You know you're not going to go anywhere when you anchor there. It's it's some primordial ooze on the bottom there, but it is exposed. Now if you have some winds that you know are going to be, it's deceptive on the map here because it looks like you would have pretty good coverage. Whoop, but there is a spot you can see where the bay can blow right up in here and hit you. So if wind's blowing out of the southeast, it can run right up there and hit you, but you can go further up in the Road River and anchor back in here and get a lot better protection from the wind. But we've always stayed out in here and never had a problem. If we know the wind is going to be picking up from that direction, we just move on. So that's a nice spot to stay as well. Continuing south is Herring Bay. We've only stayed here twice, I think. Our very first year we stayed here going south and north, and I would never stay there again unless it was an absolute emergency. So Herring Bay, as you can see, is basically just a dent in the side of the bay. And there are cliffs along this edge here, so you do have good wind protection from any westerly wind, but you are very exposed to the bay, and there's a lot of container ships, oil tankers, that kind of stuff that go up and down the bay. And the waves, they come across, if you're parallel to the waves will come across the bay. They'll hit you once, then they'll bounce offshore and come back and hit you again. So every tanker ship that goes by, you're rolling side to side for about 5 minutes, and it's a pretty extreme pitch too. And it's just uncomfortable, so I wouldn't stay there again. You might get lucky and there are no tanker ships or cargo ships that go by, but it's kind of hit or miss, and it's it's not the best anchorage. There are much better ones. So going south down there, we get into the Pax River, and this is where Solomons is located, so this is in Maryland. Going back up into Solomons, you can see here there are just tons of anchorages everywhere. I usually go up to Back Creek. It's a nice little residential area up in there. There's room for about 1 boat, and it's just, you got wind protection from every direction. It's a very, very nice place to be. It's shallow, but it's got that primordial ooze, so you know you're not going to go anywhere, and there's no wind to blow you anywhere either, so you don't really have to worry about it. You can set it and forget it there, so that's good. And I'm sure, I've never tried any of these other anchorages, but I'm sure they're just as good. I'm sure they're very similar. If it's just a quick in and out, normally I'll go back up in Solomons when I know there's going to be bad weather out in the bay. But if it's just a quick overnighter, we'll go down. There's an Air Force base down in here, and you can come down and anchor right next to the Air Force base, and you do get a pretty good show of you know, aircraft coming in and out of the Air Force. I can't talk today. So that's a great anchorage. You know, depending upon which way the wind is going to be coming from, you can see it is exposed to the bay from the north east. So you know, you have to pick your spot when it's good to anchor there. But like I said, if it's a quick in and out, it's a great spot to stay. Never had any problems with holding there or anything. So from there we head down the bay, and it's a long run down to our favorite anchorage. And I do just want to say, in no way, shape, or form is this a comprehensive list of all of the anchorages in Chesapeake Bay or anywhere along the ICW. There are thousands and thousands of anchorages, but these are just the ones that I've stayed in. So going down just south of the Potomac River is my favorite anchorage in all of Chesapeake Bay, and it's probably our second or third favorite anchorage in general, and that is in Mill Creek. Back up in here you have protection from 360 degrees. It's absolutely wonderful. It's shallow. It's got a primordial ooze bottom again, so you're not going to go anywhere once you get here. You can go quite a bit back up into Mill River, so if the weather's going to be really nasty, I would go back up in further, like if I knew, you know, tropical storm or something was coming, I would go further back in. But for most, even gale force winds, you can stay on either side here. Normally we stay on this side. This side would give a little better protection if the wind is coming out of like the southwest. And we've actually taken the dinghy all the way back up into the start here, and this is a really neat area back up in here. It does get quite, the banks get quite steep back up in here, so even if like a tropical storm or a hurricane was coming, I would think back up in here would be a wonderful spot to stay. The protection there would be next level, so that's a great hurricane hole there. Going south, we did stay once. Let's see, no further. Okay, nope, that's next time, sorry. So up in here is Deltaville, and Deltaville is wonderful. Jackson Creek is super protected. It looks like you would be exposed to like southwest winds coming out. You know, you could see wind coming up the bay and slamming the creek there, Jackson Creek. But there's a big sandbar here. It's only about, it shows 3 or 4 or 5 feet deep, but it is much shallower than that. I've seen people walk all the way out here. It's only a couple of feet deep at the most. And it's a narrow channel getting in there, but if you stick to the middle of the channel, and it's nice because you can see the entire channel from the outside, and you don't want to pass a boat in that channel because it is quite narrow. But just wait till the traffic clears and you can go in there, and you can anchor anywhere in Jackson Creek. I even anchored over here, and there was 30-mile-an-hour winds out in the bay, and it was nice and calm back in Jackson Creek. That sandbar out here really breaks up the waves so it doesn't hit you. Here again, primordial ooze as a bottom, so once you set your anchor, you're not going anywhere. And I've stayed a bunch of different places up here in Jackson Creek. It's very nice. I have stayed on the outside of Jackson Creek as well. If it's just a quick overnighter and the winds are going to be calm, you know, I don't want to monkey around getting back into Jackson Creek, so I'll just stay on the outside, drop the hook, and then pick up and leave the next morning. That's just as well. I do know a lot of people come back up here and anchor as well. I've never been up there, but that seems to be a very popular anchorage. In the very first year, I came down here and anchored behind Gwynn Island, and that was not a great choice. As you can see, it's very exposed to the bay, to winds from the bay. So the first year I picked my anchorages not very well. I think I've gotten a little better at it over the years, but yeah, some anchorages are better than others. Let's just put it that way. Okay, now let's see. One place I have stayed is right up here, and this is in Mobjack Bay, and that is horrible anchorage. Don't ever stay there. So the first year when I traveled, I was under the misconception, you know, here you've got your normal navigation channels, right? So here's your ATONs, here's where your navigation channel is. So I always stuck to the navigation channels. I thought that's what you were supposed to do. I thought that's what you had to do, but that is absolutely not the case. Chesapeake Bay, you can go wherever you want. You can bushwhack, you can do anything. And I didn't understand that my first year. I was very green, what can I say? So I came out here, when I was leaving, I came out all the way out here, and then I would start taking the navigation channels up, you know, and then I couldn't make it very far, so I had to anchor over here versus making it up to Deltaville. So, you know, it's much longer, obviously, to go out here and around rather than just going straight up here, which is what you can do and which I do now every year. So bushwhack in Chesapeake Bay. The only bad thing about bushwhacking is you do have to watch for fish traps and, you know, crab pots, that kind of stuff. But otherwise, traveling in a straight line is much quicker. So we did stay here once. It was horrifically exposed to winds from the bay, as you can imagine. It was we got lucky. It was not. We did have a storm blow through, and it got rough for a while, but then it calmed out and it was nice. There is a sandy shore over here, and the puppy dogs and I went in and ran around on the beach. But other than that, I would never stay there again. So going south, past Mob Jack Bay, is into Hampton, Virginia. So down here, we normally stay at the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel here. I think it's called something different. They call it Phoebus or Old Point Comfort Anchorage, but it is right next to the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel, and it does look kind of exposed to the west, but the pilings for the highway here actually break up the waves quite well. So it is very calm up in here. This is one of the heavier trafficked harbors in the world. You do get a lot of traffic, military ships, cargo ships, oil tankers, grain barges, all of that kind of stuff come through here. And they can throw some wake up in here, but very rarely do you ever feel it. It's a very nice anchorage. I've stayed here for weeks waiting for weather out in the bay to improve, and we've never had any serious issue there at all. So that's a very good anchorage. Great holding, no problems there at all. So going further south down the Elizabeth River, it can be, it can be deceptively choppy out here. I think this is the James River, and then once you get down in here, it's the Elizabeth River. But up in the James River, it can get quite sporty out there, so you do have to be a little bit careful. And the traffic in here is next level, and this is one of the busiest spots. And maybe before South Florida, I don't know because I don't go that far south, but this is the busiest spot that we travel through on our journey from Delaware City to St. Augustine. So heavy traffic through here. AIS is very, very, very friendly. So this is neat. You go through past all the battleships. I call it Battleship Row. I don't know what it is, but all the military ships are in there, the aircraft carriers, that kind of stuff. So it's a really neat area. Then you've got your shipping terminals down here with all the cargo ships. So it's just, it's a very neat area. Down here, let's see, where is it? Here we go. I have stayed here a couple of times, Hospital Point. This is wonderful. If you do get a chance to stay here, I would say definitely check it out. It's a very narrow anchorage. There can be a lot of crab pots in there, and it is pretty popular. A lot of people like to stay there, so it can be hit or miss on whether you'll get a spot there. There are alternate anchorages around the corner. I've never stayed over there, but I have stayed down here a couple of times. The holding is good, and it does get deep quick. So once you get out into the channel, it is 40, 50 feet deep, and then it does shallow out up in here. So there's a very narrow band in here where you can anchor. You do get some swell. There is a lot of traffic going through there. But the reason why it's so great is at night. Over here is downtown Norfolk, and it is wonderful. At night, it's all lit up. There are marinas, the whole downtown, the skyscrapers. There's the Nautilus Museum over there, which has the USS Wisconsin. My home state. I always like looking at the Wisconsin when I go by. I always take some photos. So it's great. It's a great area to stay. It is a bit of a novelty. It's not the most comfortable anchorage, but it's spectacular views. And I would recommend staying there at least 1 or 2 nights, just to see. It's a pretty neat area. Going south, you get into the Elizabeth River and you head down, and that's when you get into Chesapeake, Virginia. Now this place is great. So you do have to go through a lock. The first time going through a lock can be a bit intimidating, but listen to the instructions from the lock tenders. They're great. They'll open up. You come in all along this. What would that be? Would that be the east? That would be the west wall, I guess, maybe. Along this west wall over here are all rubber bumpers, so you don't need to put bumpers out. If it's a really heavy traffic day and you do have to tie up on the east side, you do need to put bumpers out. That's a concrete wall. But you very rarely. I've never had to anchor on the east wall, and only once when I was going through the lock was it busy enough that they had to put boats on both sides? And that's because we were waiting on the north side of the lock. It was a bad tide day, so we actually had to wait 2 hours to get into the lock. So, and they were having electrical problems that year, so that also hindered it, but I believe they've got all of that straightened out. So usually we go in, tie up on this western side here, no problems. I've tied up solo. Normally they have a bridge tender there to help you out, but if they don't, it's not a big deal. Go over, stabilize the boat, loosely tie up on the front and the bow and the stern, and then they'll raise or lower you as needed, and then you can head out the lock on the other side. So heading into Great Bridge, Virginia, there are 2 different anchorages. Huh, this is a little different. Oh yeah, so they do still have them here. Okay, so along this, this just looked different last time I looked at it. Yeah, okay. So this is the Great Bridge Bridge, and this only opens once per hour. So at the top of the hour, so at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, that kind of stuff. So they'll always time, the lock will time with it. So you'll probably, normally they'll start filling up the lock 15 minutes before the hour. So all of the southbound traffic can come in, they can get raised or lowered, and then you can get through the lock and make it to the Great Bridge Bridge in order to get through at the top of the hour. And then any traffic heading north will go through the bridge, come into the lock, and then get processed through to the north. So they've got this system down, you know, they obviously have it figured out. But there are 2 free, the great thing about Great Bridge is there are 2 free docks. This is the only spot that we ever dock on our journey north or south. I mean, that's it. Other than docking for fuel, this is the only spot we ever stay. There are other free docks, like in Oriental, North Carolina. I know they've got free docks. I think if you take the, what is it, the swamp route, I forget what that is, the name of that swamp, Dismal Swamp. If you go the Dismal Swamp route, I know there are free docks over on that side as well. But on this route, there is the free dock on the, I guess it would be the west side of the bridge, and then there's a free dock over here on the east side of the bridge. Now, the free docks will hold approximately 6 boats on either side. I have seen people, so over on this side there is a seawall. It's like a metal corrugated seawall, and I have seen, there are trees along this side. I've seen people come in late at night and tie up to those trees as well. But yeah, the free docks are very nice. And the great thing about this is there's grocery stores, there's vet clinics, there, you know, for dogs, there's pet stores, there's everything that you might need down in here. There's some fast food. I always what is it, Jimmy John's. I always get a Jimmy John's sub when I come through. It's right next to where you dock, so it's convenient. But yeah, that's great. And then Atlantic Yacht Basin. Now this used to be a must-stop spot for fuel. Atlantic Yacht Basin used to have the absolute rock bottom price on fuel anywhere on the East Coast. It used to be 25, 50, 75 cents cheaper than anywhere else. Once you get into Florida, there's no escaping it. You're going to get screwed on fuel prices. It's just unavoidable. Which is a shame. And this place, Atlantic Yacht Basin, used to have wonderful fuel prices, but it's under new ownership as of this year, and their fuel prices have gone way up. So it's not, they don't overly screw you on fuel, pardon my French, but it's no longer a deal. Now, we always stop there anyway, just because it's convenient. Leaving Delaware City, getting down to Atlantic Yacht Basin, it's a good distance for us to refuel, and if we refuel there, then we can get all the way down to South Carolina in the Waccamaw to refuel at the Waka Wachi Marina. So that's our next refuel spot. So it's convenient because it's evenly spaced for us, but it sucks because now it's probably, the fuel there is probably 50-75 cents a gallon more than it used to be, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. So heading down, this is I forget the name of this canal. What is it? I think it's the Chesapeake Canal. Oh yeah, Albemarle and Chesapeake Canal. There we go. So through here, there's not a lot. There are 2 swing bridges. So there's the Centerville Turnpike swing bridge, and this one you have to be careful of. You don't want to leave Great Bridge too early, because it does, from 6:30 to 8:30 a.m. it will not open. So you don't want to get there too early in the morning. I've done that. I've been a bonehead and left Great Bridge at 6:30, not realizing that didn't open. So I've been stuck there waiting for an hour and a half, which which is a bit of a bummer. But anyway, once you get through there, you head down, and there's another swing bridge here, which is the North Landing Bridge, and that opens at the, I think, top and bottom of the hour. I'm pretty sure. Nope, I guess, oh yeah, top and bottom of the hour. So that's a little more accommodating there. And from there you can head through, and there are anchorages listed here, but I've never tried any of them. Let's see. They're right on the edge of the channel. This is the one I've maybe thought about trying. See, for us being the slowest moving boat in existence, we always want to make sure we get a free dock going into Great Bridge. So I like to leave, if I left with all of the rest of the boats from a typical anchorage, say in North River, and tried to make it to Chesapeake, Virginia, we would not get a free dock because everyone else would get there before us. So there are a couple of anchorages along this area that are very sketchy, and we do stay in one of them. Now this one, I've seen boats anchored in here, but I've never tried it. Down here there is also another sketchy one, which this one looks even more sketchy, but it's actually a little deeper here than what it looks. It is right in on the edge of the channel, but there's a pocket right here that is deeper, and we've anchored there a few times. Is it ideal? No. But, you know, it works, and you do get a lot of wake from passing traffic in the ICW. You're right on the edge of the channel. It's not ideal, but it is what it is. From there, we head down into... Oh, actually, that's where we cross into North Carolina. So should I stop here? Let's go just a little bit further. Let's go up to Albemarle Sound. So here we go through, and this is Currituck Sound. And let's see, I have stayed in Currituck Sound once. This is a much more comfortable anchorage. You can peel off from the ICW and come out here. It is very shallow, but it is doable. And you know, you're exposed right in the middle of this bay out here, this sound. But you know, if the wind is going to be calm, you can stay out there, and then you can make your run up to Great Bridge the next morning. So I would much rather stay out here than I would to stay at that sketchier anchorage just a bit north. But this is very, very weather dependent, so it's not an ideal anchorage either. And going further south, you head through Coinjock, South Carolina, which is pretty neat. It's along this canal here. There are lots of marinas and stuff. It's a neat little area. And then you get out into the North River. Now, all of these anchorages up here are pretty shallow. I've seen a lot of cabin cruisers anchored up in here. But the spot that I anchor in North River is off on the side here. It is a little bit deeper. You can actually get quite close to shore, deceptively close, and it does stay deep. But that's a good anchorage there. You don't have to worry about dragging anchor or anything there. And once you continue down through the North River, usually when I'm heading south, like when I'm going north, I'll want to get as far as possible, so I'll anchor up in the North River up here. Heading south, again, you want to get as far as possible. So you can anchor anywhere along in the North River, of course, depending upon the wind, because this is a huge area. So you don't want to get you don't want to be exposed to the wind. But if it's going to be a calm night, you can get yourself set up to cross Albemarle Sound the next morning. So this is a good spot to stay up here. I've stayed at different spots depending upon how far I can make it before I lost daylight. You can peel off anywhere on the side here and anchor. It's plenty deep all the way up in here. You know, the further off you can get off the ICW, the calmer it's going to be, the less wake that'll affect you. But, you know, besides a barge or two, there's really not much traffic in this area at night, so you don't really have to worry about it too much. but I have stayed, and one time I should not have stayed here. This was gross negligence on my part. There was a storm going on. We made it across Albemarle Sound. This is when we were heading north, and we should have, and it started to rain. It was just downpouring. We were getting soaked. My screen, you know, I use an iPad for my navigation, and this was getting wet, so when an iPad screen gets wet, it can be problematic to use. And I was having problems reading it. I knew I could peel off once I got up here and anchor and wait for the storm to blow through, and I just didn't go far enough north. So this is a spoil area in here, and usually a spoil area is where they just drop crap. You know, in the old days, they used to just dump stuff out here. So old concrete, old busted up roads, you know, timbers, whatever they had to dispose of, they would drop in these areas. And I dropped my anchor there, which, not a great idea. Luckily it didn't get snagged on anything. I should have gone just a little bit further north and I would have been in the clear. But yeah, you know, that was a boo-boo on my part. It happens. So. And from there is Albemarle Sound, which is about, I don't know, 12, 13 miles across, something like that. So it can get pretty sporty out there as well. But I think we'll cover that next week. So I guess that's it for this week. We got through Chesapeake Bay and Virginia and just a little bit of North Carolina. So we'll pick up in Albemarle Sound next week. Yeah, like I said, this is not a comprehensive list of all the anchorages, just the anchorages I've stayed in. And yeah, so I hope some of this information was helpful, and I guess we'll get back at it next week. And that's all we have time for this week. I would like to give a massive shout out to my Patreon crew. Without your guys' support, I wouldn't make these videos. And my Patreon crew is Joan and Juddy Judnick, Val and Chris Alcorn, Denise and Eli Sackett, Sherry Erickson, Deb Shaw, Matthew Spotton, Peter Allen, and Natalie Linehan. Thank you guys so very much. Your support really means the world to me. I do have one legacy patron member, and her name is Joan Linbo. Unfortunately, she has passed on, but she lives on in our hearts forever. We really miss you, Joan. If you are interested in joining our Patreon crew, there is a link in the description down below, and that'll take you to our Patreon page where you can sign up. And there are hundreds, literally hundreds of extra videos and photos of our travels, and I try and keep everything there up to date and post at least once or twice a week, so it gives you a little peek behind the curtain. If you do like our videos, please like, comment, and subscribe. That'll help us out more than you'll ever know, and that actually doesn't cost you anything, so hit that like button. Alrighty, I hope you all are well, and we'll see you next week.